r/ruleshorror. Hosted by you/jahorrible26. Sheep's clothing. One of the deadliest toxins known to man runs through each and every one of our veins from the day we're born. It's a poison that infects us all, a poison even the strongest of wills falls ill to. What is this toxin, you ask? The answer's pretty simple: distrust. It's strong enough to corrode away even the closest of friendships. It can cause a breakout of death and war if it infects someone with the power to do so. A disease that can tear whole families apart. Well, what if I told you there was a way to cure you of it? A way to see someone's true intentions from the start? A way to spot the wolf hidden among the herd? Well then, keep reading, and maybe you can reach that vaccine. To get started, there is a certain criteria of instructions that must be followed if you even wish to begin the ritual. These instructions include: 1. You must start in a single room building, like a shed or a garage, as long as it's a separate structure from the rest of the home. There must not be any running water or electricity hooked up to this building. 2. You must bring a light source with you, however this light source must be natural light, aka, no technology. This can range from a candle flame to even a jar of fireflies. As long as it produces its light source naturally, it will work. 3. You must start no earlier than 1 a.m., but no later than 3 a.m. You may arrive to your desired location earlier in the day if you wish, just don't reveal your light source till the designated time. Time-keeping devices are acceptable but must be strictly mechanical. If it runs on batteries, it's not gonna cut it. 4. You'll need something to jeopardize your luck. This can range from doing the ritual on historically unlucky dates like Friday the 13th or April 24th, to shattering a mirror or opening an umbrella once you reach your chosen location, before starting. 5. You'll need to set a table with 2 chairs seated across from one another. Make sure to take the least comfy of the 2. 6. You'll need a medkit. Now this one is more of a highly strong suggestion than a requirement, but trust me, you're gonna want to have one on standby. 7. Finally and most importantly, you must do this alone. Once you have everything in order, and once 1 a.m. rolls around, you are ready to begin. Take out your light source, and place it on the table. If you brought an item to jeopardize your luck, trigger your bad luck before doing so. Once you've placed down your light, take a seat at the table and wait. Within a few moments you should hear 3 knocks. Any more or less, you do not open the door, you get as comfy as possible and just go to sleep, but I repeat, do not open the door. If it is 3, respond to them with "Welcome in, Wolf." Within a few seconds you will hear the door slowly creak open, before your guest will step through. Whatever you do, just stay calm. What you'll see step through will unnerve you, terrify you even, but don't show it. What you're going to see will very loosely resemble a sheep, roughly 5 feet, while on all fours. It will look thin to the bone and even mangled to all hell. Patches of flesh could be missing, bone can be splintering out of skin. Whatever wounds you may see, just ignore. Not long after, the creature will stand on its hind legs, before slowly taking a humanoid form, resembling a young Native American woman. Many who do deals with her will refer to her as a skinwalker, and while this is almost definitely what she is, don't refer to her as one while in her presence. She's not here to make small talk, she's here to make a sale. Now you may be asking yourself, if this is a sale, what will I be paying with? Well, that's where that heavily recommended medkit comes into play. A girl's gotta eat after all. The prices will be as listed below. 1. A single finger. This will grant you immediate clarity on a single event or moment in your life you have felt someone had been two-faced with you. For example, say you're almost certain someone stole from you and swore up and down it wasn't them. Well, let her take a finger and you'll know for sure. 2. 3 fingers or a thumb. Worried someone may distrust you, if justified or otherwise? Well, paying this price will grant you instant trust from one select person. This person will trust you indefinitely, and will be completely blind to any of your deception. This one is favored among the more wicked of her customers. 3. A hand. For those who think everyone is talking behind your back, lend her a hand and you'll be able to sense any comment or thought towards you in any room you step in. Who they come from will not be crystal clear, but if you know the people you're around enough to know how they talk, you might have a good shot at putting the pieces together. 4. A limb, or an eye and ear. If you're willing to pay top dollar, then never again will you have to question what people think of you, or what they might have done, as paying this price will grant you the ability to completely understand and know every thought someone has or ever had done to you just by looking into their eyes. Now you can only buy one item, so choose wisely. Once you've made your selection, prepare yourself, place the first aid kit on the table next to the light source if you brought one, then finish the transaction. Offer her whatever body part you've put up for sale, and you will see her mouth open, to reveal 2 sets of razor-sharp teeth. She will quickly sink them into your flesh, before tearing her payment off of your bones. If a med kit is provided, she will quickly tend to the wound with surgeon-like precision, after which she will stand up, and blow a blue cloud of smoke into your face. To this you will wake up in the chair she had been sitting in. Then you may step outside and you'll soon begin to experience the effects of your new purchase. Now before you go out and pay an arm and a leg for semi-phys chic abilities, really think about it. You sure you want to know everything? You really want to know what everyone you care about really thinks of you? After all, how does the old saying go? Ignorance is bliss. r/nosleep. Posted by you/Jahorrible26. I entered an auction house on the dark web, and found myself for sale. During my first year of college I was introduced to the Tor browser by my new roommate Ricky. Those of you who have been around the internet for long enough know Tor is a browser engine used to help you access the dark web, to which we frequently did. For a barely 20-year-old dude experiencing his first moments of living away from home, being handed a way to access nearly whatever I wanted just from the press of a few keys felt like being handed absolute freedom. While we mostly just used it for accessing pirated games and films, or maybe visiting a banned website, there were times I've found myself on the more twisted side of it all. I've honestly seen some pretty fucked shit that I really didn't want or need to see other than to satisfy my morbid curiosity of if it would be possible to even reach those places. While I mostly regret these deeper dives into the dark web, one such dive might have very well saved my life. It was about 2 a.m. on a Friday during the end of my third year of college, and Ricky had been spending the night at a cousin's house, leaving me to myself. I had been scrolling through the web, going through various shady movie sites and running games I didn't technically own, when I got a strange pop-up ad. One-time auction, limited items, one of a kind. Get now or never again, don't miss out on these items, it read in a flashing red and green Comic Sans font. Now I've gone to a few of these dark web auctions, even participated in a few out of impulse, bidding on things that triggered something in my dumb college dude brain. This ranged from things like overly engraved gold handguns you would see Tony Montana strapping, to pounds of the finest weed grown in the purest soils of Jamaica, just to give me that little adrenaline rush of dude, what if I actually get it? Granted, I only ever bid 10, maybe $20 tops, knowing actually winning any of it would probably land me behind bars. I wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed and would have been busted within minutes of receiving the package. This one would be different, however. I decided I'd check out the auction and click the link, before browsing through the bids. At first it wasn't anything serious, mostly firearms and drugs, typical black web catalog. As I moved down the list the items got more extreme, much more extreme. The list started with simple low-caliber handguns you could get at Walmart in some states, but quickly changed to sniper rifles and LMGs fit for military elites, till I was eventually being offered small nuclear explosives claiming to have enough power to level small towns to ash and brimstone. Super strong pot and funny mushrooms quickly turned to advertisements for pounds of Colombian cocaine, to 10 pounds boxes of fentanyl pills. Shadiest of all were what I assume are experimental drugs. Black and yellow sludge-like substances held in test tubes that didn't even have real names, just things like XD. 1 vertical bar and B8 plus RVV1/. Judging by the descriptions, these things fry your brain, considering the people selling it explain the effects through mostly incoherent, barely understandable sentences implying they've been indulging on their own supply. I remember one going along the lines of fun green bubbles, when super cool if eaten you it's like green blue green bubbles, they fly up eat up fly down with the green bubbles. I might be paraphrasing on that, but trust me it wouldn't have made any more sense than if I did get it spot on. Eventually I reached what I took to be the hitman and murderer catalog. Poison brews of resin and cyanide claiming to have 0 scent or taste, soundproof sneakers, weapon silencers, fake Alice's, passports. People were even selling codes that were apparently instructions on how to get to areas in your location where bodies are most often hidden, and never found. There were other codes that were labeled as how to instructional tapes made by professionals on how to get away with various types of murder to even murders. If you didn't want to do the work yourself, you could buy the phone number to a top-class hitman near you who will make sure your job is done effectively. Things only got worse when I scrolled to the next page, to see photos of people, some even children, with their names listed underneath. They were advertising human trafficking, and given each of their product a small biography of sorts, as if they were stat cards. It listed everything from address, to allergies, strengths, weaknesses, even down to the daily routine. Now I've seen these kinds of black room type things and was well aware of how sick people can be on the dark web, but seeing it never got any less unsettling. Especially reading some of the things these bidders wanted to do with the product once they got their hands on them. This unsettlement quickly turned to unimaginable, agonizing fear as I scrolled down, to see my own portrait, one taken on my first day of college. I began to panic as I read off my card. Whoever these people were, they knew my name, age, race, height, weight, even down to my small birthmark behind my ear. Not only that, but they seemed to have known my whole life story from birth. My panic only grew wider as I saw there were already 4 bidders, the highest of which bidding almost 15 grand. The sickest part was these bidders left comments. Things like "it fit well with my collection, I can't wait to have his body, I wish to taste his skin," along with a slew of horrible, deranged shit they wanted to do with me that I really don't want to repeat. I fell back and began to hyperventilate. It felt my heart was gonna give out and my brain was gonna explode thinking of all the horrible things that may happen to me at the hands of these sick, twisted people who look to take ownership of my life. Most of the rest of the night was a blur. I remember bidding 20k off the bat to top the list, then periodically bidding I think another 3 what felt like every 30 minutes till I reached almost 40k. After that I must have blacked out, because the next thing I remember was waking up curled into a ball under my desk in a puddle of cold sweat. It was still dark out, so the flashing lights coming from my monitor were all too noticeable. I could feel myself shaking in fear as I slowly crawled out from under the desk before slowly looking at my screen, and seeing in large red Comic Sans "Congratulations. You win, please list where you'd like to send your prize, we will send an agent to deliver your package." I felt an overwhelming amount of relief wash over my body seeing I had just bought myself. Sure, I ended up putting myself in near debt before I've even finished school, but I'm alive, and free. Knowing those vile fucks wouldn't be able to live out their fantasies was enough for me to forget about any possible money problems. Think I even started laughing like a madman for a second as I entered "Leave them be. I bought them their freedom so they don't suffer." Hoping that'd be enough explanation. And thankfully it was, as I was answered rather quickly with another message. "Understood, your product will be removed from all auctions and marked as sold. Thank you for your purchase, Evan." Reading that caused me to nearly collapse as if all the stress and tension built up drained from my body, only to quickly return as I reread the message. They knew I just bid on myself, they were still fucking watching. The next couple months were a living hell of paranoia and anxiety. I tried to explain what I could to Ricky and he did his best to help calm me down, but it was fruitless. Eventually though, after enough time, I was able to move on from it. More so I think my mind forced me to block it out, but it's all come back now thanks to an email I had just received from Ricky almost 8 years after that night. "Please help, I don't have the money to go up against the highest bidder." I responded as quickly as possible asking for him to send me his PayPal or something. That was 2 days ago, I haven't gotten a response, I think he lost the auction. Posted by /Jahorrible26. The Ivory Statue of Redwood Forest. It was about the 3rd night of a long camping trip with a few buddies. It was supposed to be a simple spring break getaway for a bunch of high schoolers growing up in a mountain town wanting to get trashed. It had been going great, marshmallows, open campfire and enough liquor to supply a small army, but that all changed when Albert told the story of the burnt down church of Redwood Forest, the very forest we had been camping at. They say it was built and used by this cult during the late 1800s, one that believed in some Lovecraftian like god called a Ragrith or something like that. Think he was supposed to be the lord of time and life, something along those lines. He began as we sat around our small bonfire. They say the church had a large ivory statue of the thing in the center that they'd make sacrifices to. He finished, as he downed yet another drink. "Okay, and?" Carmen asked, sipping his beer. "This supposed to be some sort of ghost story," Teddy chimed in as he roasted a marshmallow. "No man, this was some real shit," Albert said, before a large smirk spread across his face. "Word is, the church and the statue are still standing somewhere in this forest," he continued as he slowly sat up. I sighed and looked to him. "Let me guess, you want to look for the place?" I asked. He nodded vigorously as his smirk grew. "Hell yeah, man. Think about it, we find this place, we'd be local legends, plus I've heard ivory sells for quite a pretty penny." He added, looking to the group. We all traded looked amongst each other, before looking back to Albert. "Alright, why not?" We eventually all agreed. After all, it was just an urban legend. Besides, even if it was real, the place was abandoned, one built by a bunch of crazy cultists from over 100 years ago at that. It'd probably just be a run-down wood shack with some cross made of twigs on the roof. So after a brief bit of debating, we decided to begin making a hunt for this church. To be honest, we had no idea where we were going. We just started walking in one direction in hopes we'd come across it, and to be fair, this did lead us to a dirt path that looked to be man-made, in which we started walking. It was definitely a strange place to put a pathway, seeing as how we were in the middle of the woods. During about an hour of walking down this path, we were about ready to call it quits and head back to the campsite, until we spotted it, a small shine at the end of the dirt path we quickly made our way to. "No fucking way," I mumbled in complete shock as I stared upon a small run-down, red-painted church. This place looked like it belonged Wonderland, granted Tim Burton's version. The building seemed warped and uneven, almost like some sort of optical illusion. The place didn't have any windows either. I mean, it did, but no glass in the framing, just black stone slabs. The door was huge, and made from stainless steel with intricate engravings of curved lines, and in the center, a giant, horned crow. This shit was real stainless too, as the door shined in the dark like a glow stick, almost like it's been getting taken care of while the rest of the building was decrepit and left to rot. Well now, let's do this, Albert said as he pulled out a small Swiss Army knife, and opening what looked like a lockpick. I'll be honest, the moment I saw the place I was filled with the greatest sense of alarm I had ever felt in my life, yet my sense curiosity slightly outweighed it, enough to ignore the obvious setup to a horror movie that leads to everyone sliced up by some deranged masked killer or something. Breaking into a church, does that count as a sin? Teddy asked as he leaned over Albert's shoulder to watch him work. Since when have you been religious? Albert responded as he inserted the pick into the key slot, in which the door began opening. Well, guess it wasn't even locked, he said with a satisfied smirk, opening the door all the way. The inside was what you'd expect to see in a normal church. Rows of benches lining each side of the building, with an open aisle in the middle leading to a small stage, a preaching podium, and a large statue of some kind. Oh Shivat, Carmen let out in a burst of excitement as he fished out a flashlight from his pocket, to shine it on the statue. The statue was made to resemble a horned crow similar to the one on the door, however this statue was far more detailed. Showing the creature had 7 eyes, 3 on each side of its face, and 1 resting in its open beak. The center of each eye had small red jewels embedded into them to give the effect of pupils. It's also donned 4 wings, that looked like feathered bat wings, and rather than the bottom half of a bird like a tail or talons, it had the lower body of a serpent. Deep carvings filled with what looked like emeralds, to give the effect of scales. The horns were curled like a ram made of solid gold, and just like Albert had said, the whole thing seemed to be carved from smooth ivory. Cody man, we are gonna be rich, Albert roared as he bumped my shoulder. I'll admit the idea was extremely tempting. We were looking at what had to be at least 200 pounds of pure ivory, along with a small trove of jewels, all too easy for the taking, but my better half got the best of me. Yeah, where we gonna put it? Besides, looting from a church just seems low. Are you really that desperate? I asked, trying to tame my greed. However, Albert was quick to be the devil on my shoulder. Come on dude, look at the thing, even a chunk of that will set us up for years. We each take a quarter of this thing and sell it off. That's 50 pounds of pure ivory, at least, he continued to pry. You can take one of the horns, solid golden, my good friend. Right as I was about to give in, Teddy said something that gave me chills. Why is it so clean? He asked as he closely inspected the thing. We all looked at him for a moment, then to the statue. What do you mean? Carmen asked as he walked closer to inspect it. Well, look at this place, it's a complete mess, yet this statue doesn't have a speck of dust on it. Hell, it looks like it's been polished too, Teddy continued as he extended his arm towards the rest of the room. That led me to think of something else. The door's spotless too. You think this place is still in use? I asked. The other 3 traded looks before Albert broke the silence. Well then, let's get this thing out of here quick then, he said, quickly grabbing onto one of the statue's horn, only for his hand to get fried to a crisp. He reeled his hand back in pan as the smell of burnt flesh. Albert's palm looked like he just put his hand in a high blast furnace oven, but we could barely focus on it for long once Carmen yelling. It's looking at us, he cried out as he stumbled onto his ass. I turned my head to the statue to see the eye in its beak had completely turned to face us, then the other 6, then they blinked, before the sound of cracking of ivory could be heard as the creature broke from its shell. The ivory shedded as if it was a second skin, slowly peeling off the beast as it extended its wings. It turned its head to us, before swallowing its eye, soon after reappearing on the creature's forehead, as it looked towards me. With unnatural speed the beast slithered up to me, meeting me face to face. I should have probably screamed, or fought back, or run. Anything, but I was absolutely paralyzed in fear. The thing studied me as I trembled softly, trying not to look it in the eyes. It looked like it was going to go for the kill when suddenly Carmen yelled out again in fear. What the fuck is that thing? He yelled out. It quickly locked its attention to him, before shrieking out in a high-pitched gargly cry, and launching itself towards him. He tried to get up and run, but the thing was too fast, quickly wrapping itself around Carmen's body. The monster slowly began to squeeze, before piercing its long beak through his chest. It looked like it was drinking his blood, like a mosquito, as it slowly drained Carmen of all bodily fluids. It almost looked like he was shriveling up, as if the thing was drinking him like a juice box. Teddy tried to charge the thing, but it was obvious he wouldn't be able to do shit, as the beast quickly swatted him away with its massive wings. It sent him flying through the room, smashing through 2 of the benches and breaking his leg. I was expecting the creature to slaughter all of us, but it just stared over the remaining 3. It slowly extended its wings, and took off through the large metal door. I ended up collapsing and blacking out due to fear and confusion. I think my mind just couldn't process what it had seen, causing my body to shut down just attempting to. I remember waking up at the campsite by the fire. At first I felt huge wave of relief as I quickly shot up and saw we were out. Relief that was quickly taken from Albert's words. Wasn't a dream, man. I heard from the other side of the fire to see him clutching his hand and staring deep into the fire. Teddy's in his tent, his legs completely fucked. The thing took Carmen, he continued as he slowly paid down. We ended up explaining it away as a camping trip gone wrong. Carmen went missing in the middle of the night, Teddy broke his leg on our search for him, and Albert burnt his hand while grilling. I mean, what were we gonna say? Anything even close to the truth would get us all locked away in a loony bin, so we tried to come up with something as believable as possible. After giving our stories, we brought Teddy to the hospital, and Albert to get treated for his hand. It's been about 6 years since then. I don't go camping anymore, haven't even lived near any woodland areas since. I still talk to Teddy every now and then, but Albert, he went missing about 2 years after. He said he was gonna try to find the place again, guess he did. The thing still gives me nightmares. Every night I see the thing's eyes, looking deep through me, before launching its spear-like beak into my chest. I don't know why it didn't kill the rest of us. I have absolutely no clue why Albert would go back to that place, and I have absolutely no clue why I'm so tempted to do so myself. Posted by you/Jahorrible26. Skin-stitched puppets. You know those creepy ventriloquist/puppet stores you see in movies they use to make an uncomfortable setting? Those kinds were what looks like hundreds of old wood and porcelain puppets, suspended by strings used to make them dance. Where you feel at any moment the creepy little fuckers will spring to life, and you can feel their dead painted on eyes following your every move. Yeah, we had one of those in my hometown. This place would put any horror movie to shame by a mile. The place looked like it was built in the late 1700s, at the most. Made almost entirely of wood, with absolutely zero windows, and while it had modern day accommodations on the inside, it was shot to holy hell. The lights flicker every minute, that's if the bulbs weren't busted, which was about 50% of the time. The heat rarely ever worked, and the place was known for 4 separate gas leaks. Me and my old man even offered to fix the place up after we got our contracting licenses, but were declined pretty quickly. The only thing missing that would have made this place an absolute cliché would be if the owner was some creepy old dude, with one blind eye and a patchy beard, and while that was once the case, that was well before I or even my parents had been born. I believe the story was the man running it during my time in that town was his great-grandson of something like that. He was I would say, 25-ish years old, pale, tall, stick of a man with jet black hair always slicked back, and while not exactly creepy, he was certainly strange. For starters, he only ever wore a black, 3-piece business suit, at all times, and his voice sounded almost robotic and muffled, not to mention extremely bored. He also had no real name, that or he just refused to tell anyone, so we all called him the puppeteer. Strangest thing of all were his eyes. His irises and pupils looked like multicolor TV static. At first I thought it meant he was blind, but according to him it's just a birth defect. I've been inside a couple times, out of curiosity, considering I walked past it every day on my way home from school for years, and let me just say, absolute nightmare fuel. If it wasn't bad enough the place was built like the Sawyer's house from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the puppets reached so far down the uncanny valley that they've reached the bottom, especially the eyes. Not a single doll, marionette, or puppet had 2 of the same colored eyes, and resembled snake eyes more than humans. It was until my last trip to the place that I found out how evil this place truly was, and it all started with a simple bet. Guarantee I can stay longer than you. My friend Chris said as him, his girlfriend Lizzie, her twin sister Layla, and our David walked home from school. But why spend the night in the first place? I asked, stuffing my hands in my pockets. He smirked. What, someone being a little bitch? You scared? Lose your balls in your purse? He mocked as he bumped my shoulder. I'm with Alex on this one, dude. That place ain't exactly suited for overnight stays. David added, Chris quickly retorting. Oh, of course you would, you're a total pussy dude. David gritted his teeth and looked at Chris. Hey, you are what you eat, dick lips, he spat back with a snarl. Layla then sheepishly spoke up on the matter. Yeah, I don't like the sound of that in the slightest. Lizzie laughed. Why not? Thought you'd be jumping on the chance to spend a night jumping on our good old conductor's train, she said, looking over her shoulder to her sister with a malicious grin as she watched Layla's face grow tomato red from both anger and embarrassment. I had simply rolled my eyes. Lizzie liked messing with people more than her boyfriend. This was far from the first time she's called us out to try getting a ride from her sister, which almost never failed, no matter how many times it had happened. It's contractor, dummy. Chris corrected her teasingly. You think they'd let this clown operate a train? It's a miracle he can use power tools, he continued to mock, Lizzie quickly adding her 2 cents. Damn, Elle totally could have made it a drilling and screwing pun, golden opportunity right through my fingertips, she said with a small laugh. Didn't you fail word processing for playing with a power saw? You aren't exactly an Einstein either, buddy, I laughed with a middle finger salute as we began walking past the shop. Well? What'll it be, everyone? Chris asked, looking at the 3 of us. After a slight sigh, I threw my head back. Fine, if it'll shut you up, I'm in. I replied. Layla slowly followed with a small simple nod, before David eventually caved as well. Then it's settled, we come back here 10 p.m. tonight. Chris announced before we continued our walk back to our neighborhood. Once 10 came around, I suddenly found myself in a puppet store. Can you believe this place doesn't have any locks? I was fully ready to show off my lock-picking 100 skill tree, Chris said as we walked through the door. I definitely can, who in Saints Hell would want to break into this place? I replied as we scanned the area, surveilling the old, stuffed and carved puppets. I was almost waiting for one of the little freaks to spring to life and jump us at every second. Us? David added as we began searching for the light switch. He's got you there, Layla teased with a small laugh, before the fact she was surrounded by old puppets kicked in, where she quickly hopped behind me clutching the back of my shirt, almost as if trying to hide from them. Can we go now? This place is giving me the creeps, she said softly, almost whimpering. I laughed and looked over my shoulder. Oh yeah? Just wait till midnight, they say that's when they come to life, I teased, trying to lighten the mood, fully expecting a quick-witted response as normal, but that wasn't the case. I'm serious, Alex, I'm getting a really bad vibe, it doesn't feel safe here, and I really don't want to spend the night surrounded by these things, she said in a somewhat cry. I could hear the shakiness in her voice. Now I was a little concerned. I mean, sure, she wasn't exactly the bravest girl around, but I've certainly never seen her this worried. I turned around softly, putting my hands on her shoulders. Hey, relax, there's nothing to be scared of, they're just dolls. Besides, you really want to deal with everyone else breathing down our necks about wussing out? After a long pause, she slowly nodded. After all, your sister did bring up a pretty valid point this afternoon. A load of empty aisles and janitorial offices around, I said with a few over-exaggerated eyebrow raises. That seemed to put her a little more at ease, giving a soft chuckle. Ah yes, hooking up surrounded by weird puppets and Clorox bottles, you truly are such a romantic. She responded sarcastically. However, this brief sense of security was quickly taken away by the sounds of David's screams, before being abruptly cut off by what sounded like a closing door. Yo, what the fuck was that? I heard Chris ask as he and Lizzie rounded a corner. I pointed my flashlight towards where the scream had come from. Sounded like Davy. Should probably go look for him, he could be hurt, I said, looking at the group. Chris slightly scoffed with an eye roll. Yeah sure, but $10 says he tripped into a pile of dummies and went bitch boy on us again, he said as we began to make our way down the aisles in search of David. I was definitely on Chris's side with this one. After all, David was well known throughout school for having a rather weak fear tolerance. I mean, the kid literally got scared by his own shadow once. The idea of freaking out in a place like this was honestly expected. Unfortunately for me, Layla was not so convinced, the whole walk clinging onto my arm hard enough for her nails to break skin and draw blood, her grip tightening every other step. We searched for a good 2 hours with no luck, that's until Lizzie found a rip in the carpet. It was a small 5 feet by 5 feet square cut into a corner section, just barely noticeable. I slowly crouched down to peel the carpet up, and underneath was a small metal latch door. Oh fuck that, tell me you aren't planning on going down there? Lizzie asked me as I lifted the door up to reveal a metal, 12 feet tall ladder. I sighed as I pointed my flashlight down the opening. We've searched everywhere up here with no luck of finding David, he could be down there. Chris raised his eyebrow and crossed his arm. Dude, you really think David would go down into a secret basement in a place like this? He had a fair point, but then caused a thought to go through my head that momentarily froze time in fear. What if he didn't go down willingly? I muttered slowly. This puts everyone on more edge than razor blades. Yeah, come on, stop fucking with us, Chris said with a slightly nervous laugh. Did you check to see if the dude maybe stays overnight? I turned asking Chris, before looking at the sisters, did we do any sort of scouting before stepping foot in this building? No, we just walked in, I announced before turning back around, taking a deep breath, completely disregarding all common sense, and began my descent to this hidden cellar. Alex, man, seriously, are you nuts? Let's just leave, we can call the cops. Chris asked, crouching over the hole. Yup, 100%, but we dragged him here, I'm not leaving him behind. I replied, continuing my climb down. Alex, Christ, please climb back up here. Layla joined in desperation. Her sister just looked down with disapproval of my actions, but there was no turning back once my feet touched the ground. Ugh, fuck it, shit, fuck it, alright, let's do this shit. I heard Chris began spouting off nervously before he joined me, the girls following quickly. I looked at Layla, but before I could say anything she spoke for me. No, we are not ditching you guys, we're gonna be alone in this place, she said sternly. So with a soft sigh, I agreed and we made our way forward. At first it was just a long metal hallway, no lights or anything. After about 10 minutes of walking we heard something again, but it wasn't David's screams, but a strange mix of jazz and disco music. Another 5 minutes and we saw flashing rainbow strobe lights, just bright enough to see a small door ahead of us. We slowly made our way around the corner to see life-size puppets, some dancing, others playing instruments. The closer we got we saw the puppeteer, conducting his band with thin red strings, just waving his arms and fingers around, before suddenly stopping, and with the blink of an eye vanished, for a second. How are you enjoying the show? We heard a low monotone voice from behind. We quickly turned around to see the man, his tall stature and static eyes staring down on us. Where's David, what you do with him? Chris demanded, trying to hide any fear, rather terribly. Suddenly the man's face grew a large smile. Why don't you get better seat, huh kids? He asked in a somewhat patronizing tone, before shoving us into the center of the room. The man had arms like twigs, yet he was able to toss all four of us to the center of the stage with ease, where we looked up to see David, dressed as a smooth jazz saxophonist, suspended by strings. Patches of his flesh had been replaced with tattered, worn-down rags and sacks, crudely stitched together. Some areas were torn to reveal still freshly created lacerations. His left forearm being a stuffed rag doll-esque arm, and a would marinate puppet's hand. His legs had been sawn off from the knees down, replaced with metal prosthetics. He had been completely gutted, most of his insides being replaced with cotton stuffing, and his face, Christ, his face. One eye had been gouged out, replaced with what looked like a glass cat eye, the other eye left untouched to show life had completely drained from it, and the ends of his mouth had been stitched upwards to create a permanent smile. It didn't take long for us to realize each and every one of these puppets were once people. Upon further inspection, some were still alive. He confirmed so as he walked up to one, I'd say 30-ish-year-old dude dressed as James Bond if he was made by Frankenstein, drinking a martini. As you can see, I keep my favorites alive, isn't that right, Mikey? Mikey here came across a crappy TV I tossed out in this world. Long story short, I found my old television, and my new best buddy? He said, aggressively and sarcastically tussling the man's hair, his once flat, bored voice now sounding completely sadistic, before looking at our group and narrowing his eyes and giving another menacing grin. Like you kids, I respect your choice to come looking for your friend, so I've decided I'll spare you of death. Before any of us could react, he had his hands around my arms, his thumb grazing the small cuts Layla had left. Oh, I see someone's already got starting points. He said mockingly, before shoving his fingers into the wounds, pushing down until the once small cuts matched the size of bullet holes. I let out a sharp yell of pain before my arm went completely numb, as he pulled his fingers out, as well as pulled my arm upwards. I looked up to see he had attached those same red threads to me from my wound, that had spread across my shoulder blades, sinking into my other arm, and effectively eliminating any use in my arms. Getting an up-close look at them, they weren't just threads, but muscle tissue growing from his fingertips. The others tried to help, but the puppeteer used his free hand to keep them pinned down with his human dolls, as he used the other to pull me closer. Now, time to work, he said with a twisted grin, slowly bringing his face just inches from mine, staring deep into my eyes. Know which one to take? He debated. I saw an opening to do something. I didn't know if this thing felt pain, but I didn't have anything left to lose. So I cranked my head back as far as possible, before slamming it into his face, and to my relief was met to the sound of a loud crack, and a slew of curses towards me. Oh, you little shit stain, you're done now, he said. However, he had completely failed to realize he just released the others to stop the flow of thick black blood pouring out of his nose. Not taking much fight or flight kicked in, and after seeing what this sick ducker has done to everyone, I did something that I didn't know, or want to be capable of doing. I shot my head forward again towards his neck, sinking my teeth in deep and with all the force I could possibly use, began to tear his throat open. I can still taste that burnt rubber and charred meat blood. With this, the thing dropped to the ground, his tendrils retreating back into his fingers as it began covering the hole I had just put into his neck. We all quickly began running back to the exit, but it wasn't long till a loud cackle could be heard, along with claps from both him and his puppets. Good show, Alex, good show. Maybe I can use you for more than display. I was fully expecting some sort of chase, but no, that wasn't the case. We made it back out with no other difficulties. We went to the police, and reported David had gone missing after saying he was going to the marionette shop. We left out the fact we had technically broken into the place, and saying what we really saw would either put us high up on the suspect list, or in padded wall rooms. Of course nothing came up, and David's still labeled as missing. The puppeteer is the #1 suspect, but he left town the morning after the incident, seeing as he had no real name, and no description of the man has ever been reported or seen ever. It's been about 7 years since then. Chris ended up spiraling out of control. Started taking some seriously heavy shit, started drinking like an Irishman on St. Patrick's Day, until skipping town, said he was gonna find David. He's been off the grid ever since. That's what we thought at first anyways. You see, me and Layla managed to stay together after all those years, and I've recently proposed to her. About an hour ago, in the middle of the night, we received 2 rings on the doorbell. Layla managed to sleep through it, I however did not. Going to see who it was, I opened the door not to see anyone, but a small package labeled "Congrats Alex." What set me on edge was who sent it, Chris. I slowly opened the box to pull out a small, skin-bound, ragdoll looking identical to my old friend, 2 different eyes, a glass snake eye, and very realistic, dead one. I really don't know what I'm gonna tell Layla, but I know damn well who really sent me this doll.